everyone. Thank you so much for being a patron here. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. I wanted to quickly cover the paper. Ideally, you want to use a paper that you are very comfortable with. For me personally, I like to use Strathmore Bristol board, and this is after a lot of years of research. My best advice to you if you're searching for the right paper is trial and error. It's the only way that you will truly know what is a good fit for you. I'll talk a bit more about paper at the end of the video. Okay, let's get going. And we're going to do the same kind of thing. Only this time I think maybe I'll do some in pink, which I have mixed this, which is Parisian Rose. It's a really pretty color with a little bit of red. Okay? Starting to dry on me. Okay, now we do the same thing. We want to make 5 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then get this wet and tap it just a little bit. There you go. And a little wiggle going on there. Okay. And a little wiggle. My brush is starting to dry out, which we don't really want. Back in. Okay, maybe we'll make this one just a little bit darker. All right. And these make really neat gifts. You could measure out your paper if you wanted to. Make this one lighter. And fold it in half and make a little card to send to somebody. Okay, there we go. One little flower. And I think I kind of like just using one color because I think it bleeds out better. But here you go. You could maybe take 1 or 2 of them. And this is just straight Parisian pink. Get your brush pretty wet. Spread that out a little bit. But I do tend to like just putting one color in and varying how light it is instead of adding different colors. But who knows? That's today. Maybe tomorrow will be different. Okay, we'll make this one just a little bit pinker. And maybe a little lighter for variety's sake. Okay, let's see. Where should we put this one? Okay, we'll put this one right, right here. Okay, again, 5 little dots. Dip, touch. Maybe we'll make this one a little bit bigger. Okay, dip, touch. And like I mentioned a few minutes ago, if you can avoid touching your other petals so you have like this little white area, that's awesome. If you can't, it's no big deal. Okay, touch. I added a little more pigment, so this petal would be a little darker. Okay. Now either way works. The one where you do this wiggly thing, or the one where you kind of go in, push down, and lift up. They both kind of make a different style, but they can totally blend in together too. So, no big deal. Okay, now we'll make a third. This is something I think I'll cover in a different video, that it is usually better if you're making something like this, a still life, using whatever, fruit, flowers, leaves, whatever, that it's usually better to do it in odd numbers. It is. Okay, so should I make a orangey yellow one, another pink one, or a lavender one? I don't know. Choices, choices, choices. Okay, maybe I'll add just a touch of lavender to the pink. That'll bring it down a little, make it a little more muted, which might make sense anyway. It depends on where this flower is sitting. If it's under these two, it would definitely be a little darker. Okay. So here, remember the 5 dots. Okay. Now bring it out. Get it wet. Tap the side of your water dish. And if you're making these, your composition, you could just do so many things. Like you could make one really big one and several little ones. Or you could make like a whole field of little bitty ones. There's just so much you can do with all the colors and options. This is kind of the basic here. Kind of a general one, to give you an idea. And if you think also about flowers when you're looking at them, there's different perspectives. Like say, this one could potentially be at a little bit of an angle. So say you might only, see this part because it's tilted a little bit. If you go out and look at them, it's one of these things where if you haven't locked it into your memory, you know exactly what they look like, but you have to actually go reference them. I do anyway. Okay. Now, this olive green, the sap green, is pretty much an awesome color to use if you're doing something in general. Okay? Because if you look outside, a lot, not all, but a lot of flowers have a yellowish tint to the green. Okay, so now we're going to make the stems. We'll make them just a little bit different than the last one, I think. Okay, so do this back one first. And I'm holding my brush not straight up, but I don't want to lay it down because I'll get a thicker line. So I want to hold it up higher, so I just get a small line. Okay, and just envision where it might come out at. And towards the end, make it a little bit thicker. There we go. And remember, this is not about being perfect. This is about having fun, being creative, and making something that looks awesome. Okay, now we'll make this one. go a different way. We made the other image to where it kind of all went the same angle. And this one, we're doing them so they are about opposite. This one goes in, this one will go out, this one will go this way a little bit. Okay. Now, one of the things I usually do is I usually use a smaller brush to make the stems, because to me it's a little easier, but I was trying to do something where we could do it all with just one brush. Okay, there we go. So these end up a little bit thicker, and I do tend to like a thinner stem, just kind of a wispy type of stem. Now we go in and we'll make a different kind of leaf on this one. Here you start out at the tip of your brush, then you push down, and then you go back up to the tip of your brush. So this one you move the brush, but you also put varying amounts of pressure on your brush. You start light, go heavy, and then go light again. Okay, like this. Start light, push down, and let up again. There you go. Trying to push the paint back down. Okay. And now, so you could add a little bit of a deeper color to give different depths of color. But once again, I'm trying to keep this pretty simple. Okay, so what about one there or one there? Okay, we'll put it right here. Okay, I hope you can see this. My hand's probably smack in the way. Maybe I'll do it this way. So maybe you can see it better. Let's see, how do I do this? No, okay. Start light, push down, let out. Okay, it's as simple as that. Ta-da! Put the center in. Last time we used Payne's Gray. We could do something, maybe we'll do Payne's Gray on these two and maybe a blue in that one. Okay? And like I said, this Payne's Gray is almost black. Not quite, but almost. Okay, is that dry? Oh, okay. We'll start with this one. This time I'm trying to keep them dry so you can see what they look like if they're not bleeding into the petal. But like I said before, I really do like them when they bleed. I really, really do. See this, I like this, but it looks kind of, I don't know, expected. How's that? And here you can see this adds a little interest to me. Okay, now we'll go in here. A little water. One more. Okie dokie. There we go. Now we've got a little cerulean blue here. I'm using all these official names, and it doesn't really matter. It really doesn't. It helps if you're wanting to go to the store and buy the very same color. That helps. But don't feel obligated to use the same color because I used it. No need. Do whatever makes you happy. Okay, I'm mixing in a little bit of the Payne's Gray with this blue to make it darker because we didn't want it too light. All right. So it looks grayish, but it also has a lot of the blue. All right, there we have it. Here we go. There's both of them. And it's basically the same technique, only different. That's so helpful, isn't it? Okay. I am done painting for now. I can tell you, I think they are complete. I really do. I like them. They're loose, they're free, they're fun. But when you add marker to them, it also adds almost like a totally different image. Just different ways of doing the same thing. And I am also going to add some more information. I'm going to look over this and see what I think I should mention, and I'll add another section to this video. Okay, on to the next part of this video. A few things I wanted to mention. The first one, we were talking about paper in the beginning of the video. There are just a plethora of different kinds, and it really is best if you choose the kind of paper that you do feel best suits you and what it is you're trying to create. I found for me personally that the Bristol board was better because I couldn't find a surface that I wanted that was smooth enough to do the work that I oftentimes do. And dangles is a good example of that. You know, sometimes it's very tiny work, so I needed something that did not have a lot of tooth/texture to it. And even not the smoothest, but almost the smoothest watercolor paper did not have that. It still had some form of texture. That's why I switched to the Bristol board. Now, as far as watercolor paper goes, I've used a variety of kinds, and my favorite still is the Strathmore Smooth. And yes, I've used 100% rag. Like I said, I've just used a variety of kinds. And all of them are good. Well, no, that was a nice thing to say. Not all of them are good. Almost all of them are good. I found them, it depends on what you're using them for. If you want texture, then using a smooth surface, you will not be happy with, okay? So it's really just searching out what you like. And it also depends on finances too, because some paper can get quite expensive. So the quality of paper makes a difference sometimes it does not. Say if you're wanting to create greeting cards to send out, that might be slightly different than creating greeting cards that you have the intention of people making a wall hanging out of them. So it kind of varies depending on your goals. Now, just in general, I think if somebody were to send me a watercolor painted card that they made by hand, I would want to frame it. It wouldn't matter to me what kind of paper it's on, because it's totally the thought that counts on this for me. And I do know you can go to probably the hobby and craft stores, and for sure the art stores, and you can buy a box of pre-made cards that are supposed to support watercolor. That could be a route to go if you wanted to make cards. But if I were picking a paper to make cards with, I would definitely want to find one that was thick enough to support watercolor. If you did something like the flowers that we just created, you could get by with a thinner paper because we didn't do repeated scrubbings and we didn't immerse the whole paper in water. We just did select areas with light washes pretty much. So you could get by with a lighter paper. The one thing that I have a problem with any paper that I'm going to use watercolor on is when it buckles. And that oftentimes happens, especially if you're putting a lot of detail and time into it, because you can only get it wet so many times before it wants to buckle on you. I'm rambling. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. Okay, now on to the next thing I wanted to talk about. On the flower that we did just now, the one on the bottom had a sense of perspective to it, where the top two were pretty much just face on. The one on the bottom left, you can tell that it is at an angle because the one petal in back is only a portion of the size of the other petals, and that the two on the outer ends are longer than any of the rest, and the two in the front are longer than the one in the back, but not as long as the one on either side. And if you go outside and look at a flower or Google it, look at one that's slightly tilted, and you will see this usually to be true, that the width of the flower is greater than the height of the flower. I say that unless the flower is tilted on its side, then that just blows that out of the water. But you'll be able to see that the width of the flower is definitely the larger of the two, whereas the ones that you're looking straight on at aren't obviously in a perfect circle because we didn't make them that way, but they are pretty much circular, whereas at the perspective type view, it is more at an oval, with the petals towards the back being the smallest, the petals on the sides being the largest, and the petals in front being between the two. You know, there's many different perspectives and ways of looking at a flower, but just in general. So we covered that. Now, let's see. Oh, when I was talking about creating different images with these, like having a large one surrounded at least partially by little ones or a field of small ones, there are so many that you can create. But I did want to say the ones that we created, while probably one of the simplest, I would think would be most likely my favorites because I do love the simplicity of them. Okay, and probably the second to last thing I wanted to bring up, I don't know if any of you have experienced this or not, so I thought I should mention it. Your hands have oils on them. So when you're holding onto a paper that you are painting on, there, of course, are different variables to take into consideration. Your fingers might very well act as a resist. And I would imagine most of you know what that is. It is where the pigment is repelled in that area. It does not want to stick to the paper. So when I paint, if I am not going to do the background at all, it doesn't really matter, especially if I know where my layout is and I keep my fingers off of that part. But if I'm going to do a background, I will usually put something between my fingers and the surface of the paper, or I will tuck my fingers in and hold it with my knuckles because that doesn't have nearly as much oil. The palms of your hands and fingertips make a great resist, which is usually not what a person wants. Now, the last thing I wanted to mention is I was thinking about, for continuity's sake, taking the same project that we did today and using it for the next project. That's not to say don't paint another one. That's just to say taking this project and having it be a part of the next project. It was something that I wanted to do regardless somewhere during this time. So I thought this would probably be ideal because it would be a continuation of. And what that is, I'll go ahead and tell you, I'm cheating a little, is taking what we've done today, that is just all watercolor, no pencil, marker, or anything, and then going ahead and markering different areas of your creation. It could be the flowers that we did, or you could make an elephant. You could do anything you want because some of the techniques or steps would still be the same. I won't go into those right now. I'll do that later. If I can, I will get it done today because I should put up a project today. And if I cannot, it'll have to be tomorrow. This is another thing. I have found that the equipment I have is really not supporting me when it comes to the speed. I can do the projects, not a problem, but editing, like last night, I was up at 4 in the morning editing because my equipment's not so spiffy. So that might be a reason for me to, if I can't figure it out, maybe, I don't know, potentially doing one every other day. That way I have an entire day to edit, which is silly, but I'm working on that. Anyway, so if I can, I will go ahead and do this today and post it. If not, it will be tomorrow. And I am so sorry if it isn't until tomorrow, because that was not my goal. Okay, I am rambling again. Well, I will let you go. I hope you have fun with this project, and I found it a lot of fun. Cleaning up and editing, not so much. But the actual creating it and thinking I was going to share it with you guys, that was fun. Okay, have a great day. Much love. Don't forget, let me know if you have any questions. Okay, bye. Can you tell I've been speed talking through